Hunters, your turn. You have two new exotics. First up are the Fr0st-EE5, aka the Frosties. These give you tighter turn radius while sprinting and also give increased grenade and melee regeneration while sprinting. So while sprinting, your recharge rate is increased a lot, to the point where if you have tier 5 on both grenade and melee, you'll get both of them back while sprinting in about 12 seconds. So it's about a 50% recharge rate. That is really good, although it's better for PvP compared to PvE. If you die in PvP, you'll need to sprint back to the action, and that right there would probably recharge both of your abilities. You can use Memory of Felwinter to double down on this effect as well. In PvE, I feel like burning time sprinting isn't really the smartest thing in the world. It's not really too efficient. Not to mention that a lot of PvE is run to a room, shoot some stuff, run to the next room, shoot some stuff. The movement is just different from PvP, where in PvP it's more constant. Look at something like Vosek. Most of the time, you're just sitting in lane with limited movement, and if you do sprint, it's only for about a second. But Siege Engine has a lot of movement, and Axis does have even more movement than that, potentially. Although Frosties are not, you'll have your abilities when you need them for those high priority targets. At the end of the day, they are boots though, and the simple fact that they don't take your glove slot is pretty big for the raid. My main concern with the boots, speaking as a guy who uses sealed Ahamkaras most of the time, is that with regards to smoke grenades, for PvE at least, it didn't feel like an improvement. With sealed Ahamkara, I typically always have a smoke grenade when I actually need a smoke grenade. I don't need them that frequently, and I'm not exactly spamming them for DPS. For PvP, it sort of felt similar, but it also felt like if I wasn't constantly spamming my abilities, that I wasn't getting my money's worth from the boots. There's definitely this feeling that you might need to get used to of needing to spam your abilities to get the most out of the perk. At the same time, you don't want to just fling your stuff on every single cooldown, because then you might not have it for when you actually need it. So finding that balance is going to be pretty important. And again, much like Dune Marchers, the tighter turn radius is going to take some getting used to. Overall, these are much better than they are worse, and definitely come recommended. Then we have Shinobu's Vow getting you an extra skip grenade, giving them enhanced tracking, and an extra skip ball per grenade. These are ridiculously good for PvP. The tracking is incredibly obnoxious, the damage is great, and they're really annoying to get away from. Skip grenades basically allow you to engage from anywhere on the map as long as you get a good throw, and Shinobu's Vow just lets you engage that much easier. They give you so much control over the pace of an encounter, especially in something like Trials, that you would be crazy not to use them if you're a Blade Dancer. I never play Blade Dancer in PvP, and these worked exactly how I pictured them working. Amazingly. In PvE, they're not really that vital, especially because Blade Dancer is not that strong. I'd probably stick with Flux Grenade for the big burst of damage on a target. I think I would probably opt for the Tarantella instead of the Shinobu's Vow in PvE and sort of play the long con, but I'm going to keep this review incredibly short. They are really good at what they intend to do, which is annoy people to death, literally, in PvP. As for all of the other exotics in the game, once again, not too many shifts. Acleophage Symbiote was a 2.5 in PvE and a 3.5 in PvP. I think both of those are coming down. Orb generation is not really that difficult in PvE, and if you're a gunslinger, you're probably just going to be using Celestial Nighthawk, especially in Wrath of the Machine. Night Stalker is just way better for orb generation. In PvP, even with the slight buff it got where it got some more time put onto the timer, it's still not where it used to be. The ATS-8 Arachnid, even with its buff of a longer timer on Golden Gun, stays in place for PvE, but I'll give it a slight PvP bump thanks to that longer Golden Gun timer. Celestial Nighthawk gets a bump up in PvE. It's worthless in PvP, but in the raid has come into its own and has becoming way more popular, especially on Axis. In other content, it's not as vital, but is basically a PvE lock for gunslingers. Knucklehead Radar gets a slight PvP drop. In PvE, Third Eye isn't important at all, and considering now there's an artifact that does exactly what Knucklehead Radar does, that takes away a little bit from its power. Mask of the Third Man stays in place for the most part. In PvE, it's not really anything crazy. In PvP, Arcblade's main issue is survivability, not really the amount of swipes that they need to do well or the amount of damage that they do. Skyburner's Annex also stays in place. Worthless in PvP, alright in PvE with certain builds, but not vital to success in any way. Graviton Forfeit is an unranked exotic for PvP since it is skill based, and I don't think it's really that important for PvE at all. In the glove department, Don't Touch Me continues to stay at a 1.5. Going invisible when you're hit is a very nice defensive bonus, and I can see it being slightly more useful in Wrath of the Machine than King's Fall, but unless you have a really big problem with aggression, you can skip over it. Khepri's Sting also stays where it is. It's a really unique bonus that unfortunately has very little utility pretty much everywhere. Young Ahamkara's Spine could be argued that it should get a decrease in PvP thanks to the Trip Mine nerf, and I would slightly agree, so it gets the slightest bump down. Sealed Ahamkara's Grasp stay where they are all around. I'd be willing to bump them up in raid content thanks to the amount of high priority targets there are in the raid, but generally speaking, you'll have your smoke grenade up when you need it for those high priority targets, with or without the gloves. Going to chest armor, Crest of Alpha Lupi is your resurrection exotic. We all know the deal with that by now. Good in places where you can res, bad in spots where you can't res. The ATS-8 Tarantella stays as a strong PvE choice, but gets knocked down a peg in PvP thanks to Shinobu's Vow. Shinobus are just way too good to give up in my opinion, but the Tarantella didn't become any worse as an exotic on its own. Lucky Raspberry will continue to just sort of exist, also getting knocked down slightly thanks to Shinobus. Finally, both of the boots, Bones of Ao and Radiant Dance Machines, are unranked. They both give you a certain ability, and whether or not you can use that ability to your advantage is a case-by-case basis. That being said, the Bones of Ao are stupidly popular and probably will remain popular for a very long time. The only thing that will take them down is something game-breakingly good. Radiant Dance Machines, I wouldn't mind seeing the aim speed increased, but that might just be personal preference. That is your Hunter Armor tier list, and that is your Rise of Iron Armor tier list for the current patch 2.4.1.1. Should any exotics get any buffs or nerfs in the near future, I will likely just update the specific things that got buffed or nerfed instead of redoing this entire list. The weapon tier list is on the way. It's being worked on as we speak, so look for that coming out whenever I stop playing Civilization 6. I can't stop playing, somebody help me. If you enjoyed this series, a positive rating would be appreciated. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.